One of the saddest stories in the entire Torah is Parshas Korach, when Korach holds a rebellion against Moshe and Aaron. And it says that he gathered his people, 250 people, and they said, Madua tisnasu al kal Hashem. Everybody is holy, why are you raising yourselves up above Klal Yisrael? You're deciding for yourselves, you're making yourselves better than everybody else. Who made you better than everybody else? Moshe and Aaron. Okay? One of the interesting and surprising facts that perhaps overlooked is the fact that who was with Korach? It was Korach, there was Dasan Aviram, there was Ein Ben Pelas. Afterwards he left. So there were three people, Korach, Dasan Aviram. But when they came to Moshe, there were another 250 people. Who were these 250 people? Says the Torah, they were first of all, they were Nisiei Edah. They were, second of all, they were Kriyei Moed, and third of all, they were Anshe Shem. Three titles the Torah gives us to explain who were these 250 people. Nisiei Edah, they were leaders of the nation. They were leaders. They were Kriyei Moed. When the Rashbam says Kriyei Moed means when Moshe and Aaron had to discuss important ideas, time to time, Kriyei Moed, he would call these people. They were part of the commission. They were part of the council of the entire Klal Yisrael. They were people who sat together with Moshe and Aaron to discuss important matters that were facing the nation. They were Anshe Shem, they were people of reputation. They had sterling reputation. For all of these three reasons, they had no business getting involved in this fight with Korach against Moshe and Aaron. They were leaders. They understood. Even if it's true that Moshe and Aaron seemed like people who were a little bit raised above the people, they were leaders themselves. They knew that every leader of a community, every leader of an institution, sometimes has to assert his authority. They understood that very well. They were themselves leaders. They could not hold that against Moshe and Aaron. And even if they would, they were Kriyei Moed. There were people who gathered with Moshe and Aaron. They witnessed firsthand the humility of Moshe, the humility of Aaron, the Derech Eretz, how he acted, how he spoke, how they spoke to people. They saw it firsthand. How could they then turn around and say, oh, you're people who are haughty, you're people who raise yourselves against Klal Yisrael. They saw for themselves the great humility of Moshe and Aaron. And finally, they were Anshe Shem, they were people of reputation. It's not becoming of them to start hurling vile or insults, to speak like people who are Dasana. They're not Dasana Avira material. They're leaders of the people. They're Anshe Shem, they're reputable people, they're people that had reputation. They didn't lower themselves to hurl these types of insults. And even so, these are the 250 people that formed the group against Moshe and Aaron. And Tzif says, how does this happen? How does this so? Brings a very interesting source, a very interesting pasuk and an insight. Pasuk says at the end of Parshas Chukas, the Torah is describing the wars between Sichon and Moav and Edom. It had to do with the fact that Klal Yisrael was coming then. But in one of the wars, which was between Sichon and Moav, came from the city of Cheshbon. And poetically, the Torah says, Ki eish yatzim mecheshbon, because a fire came forth from Cheshbon, Lahava Mikiyat Sichon, Ochlar Moav, and ate up Moav. What is this fire? This fire was the war. The conflict that Sichon waged against Moav, the Torah calls it a war. A conflict is called Eish. And we know that it's called Eish HaMachlekes, the fire of Machlekes. It says in Netziv very beautifully. In Bava Kama, we know there's different types of damage that a person causes through his property. Not he himself damages, but his property. For example, his animals damage other animals. His animals damage fields. A person digs a pit and an animal falls into it. He has to pay for that. He's liable for the damages. A person lights a fire and the fire goes out and damages somebody else's field. He has to pay for it. The Gemara in Bava Kama in great detail discusses the differences between all of the different types of hezek, the different types of arbavas, nezikin, the different types of nezikin. But when the Gemara differentiates between eish, between fire and the other types, so the differentiation is it mazik masha roiloi or even masha eina roiloi? What does that mean? An animal will damage, but will damage certain things that are befitting an animal to damage. Sometimes an animal gets angry at another animal, will attack another animal. An animal will eat a field because an animal rubs himself against the wall will fall down because he wants to scratch himself. There's certain things that are befitting for an animal to damage. Same thing with the bar. There's certain things that invariably are in danger of, it's a hazard that they will fall into the bar. So for other things, there's different rules of how to pay. Sometimes you don't have to pay at all if it's not a normal type of damage. but the exception is Eish. The exception is fire. When a fire is lit and it starts burning, it can burn anything. And therefore, you're liable for anything that the fire damages, even if it's something that it should not have damage. For example, the Gemara gives examples of certain types of stone that should not burn, but when there's a fire and the whole field is burning, then it ruins the stones as well. Even though stones usually don't burn, but if it's in a field that's full, that's on fire, the stone will also get damaged. And you're liable for that. Why? Because it's Eish. Says in Netziv, a fire burns even things that are not supposed to, don't have the probability of being burnt up. These 250 people should not have been schlepped into this conflict that they were waging against. But once it was a machlekes, once it was a conflict, it was Eish. And once it was fire, it burns everything. Then there's no rules anymore. They can be leaders. They can be people who witness Moshe Rabbeinu. There's no natural reason why they should join Korach. But it's a conflict, and the conflict schleps everybody in. We're now entering the Chodesh Tammuz, the month of Tammuz, which begins the Avelos on the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash, which we know the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of baseless hatred, because of conflict among Klal Yisrael. It's a time to internalize this message, the message of Korach and the message of sinas chinam. It would be zeiche to overcome all conflict and all hatred within Klal Yisrael. Good Shabbos. Please don't forget to subscribe. You'll get the video every week by subscribing. Put a like. Thank you very much. Good Shabbos.